Okay, this Tanakh study event was sponsored by Grace and Raymond Arking in memory of Shlomo ben Gracia. Okay. So, Pilegesh Bagiv'aa seems to be one of everyone's favorite stories in Tanakh. I'm going to start introducing it by the words of the Ralbag, which I'll hopefully get back to. Literally, I won't touch them until the last 5 minutes of our talk. But I'll begin with them. In the middle of the story, as you know, the couple is traveling at night, and they pass through the Yevusi city of Yerushalayim, and they say, no, let's go a little further to Giv'aa, to the Jewish city. Okay? So he says, that Al-Bag says, this is talking about when obviously this is prior to the conquest of Yerushalayim. So he says, ולא רצה איש הלוי לסור שם, כי היה שם יבוסי יושב בעת ההיא, ולזה אמר לא נסור אל עיר נוכרי, אשר לא מבני ישראל הנה. וזה לאות, we learn from this, כי לא כבשו עדיין בני יהודה את ירושלים. At this point, בני יהודה did not yet conquer ירושלים. ולא נכבשה גם כן בימי יהושע. Wasn't conquered in the time of Yoshua. ואף על פי שכבר יקבע יהושע את מלך ירושלים. Even though we see that Yoshua did seem to conquer or attack or destroy, kill melech Yerushalayim, לא מצאנו שכבש העיר. He didn't capture the city. When was it captured? עד שבא שבט יהודה אחריו ונלחם בירושלים. No. When is that recorded? You all know that already. No. What? Okay. פרק שופטים, פרק א', פסוק ח'. If we go back, that's where the conquest of Yerushalayim, וילחמו בני יהודה ירושלים וילכדו אותה ויכו לפי חרב את העיר שלחו באש. So, he says that Al-Bag, if that's the case, if in Shoftim, Perek Aleph Pasuk Hayat Yerushalayim is already conquered, so this story happens before the conquest of Yerushalayim, still a Yevusi city. כמו ונלחם בירושלים ואחדו אותה כמו שנזכר בראש זה הספר. Should have read that line. והנה היה זה העניין מהפילגש קודם שנלחמו שבט יהודה בירושלים. Before, yes, this incident is really ממש after time of יהושע, ולזה גם כן יתבאר שאחרי מות יהושע היה אלו הסיפורים, כמו שזכרנו. ואולם נכתב בזה המקום לסיבה שביארנו. Okay, so Ralbag is saying this is out of context. This is early Shoftim, right? Now, most of the Rishonim do disagree with him, and they say this story happened late. How do I know they say that? Because they claim that Pinchas lived 300 plus years. Well, why would they say that? Well, they say that because he's mentioned in this story. So, if you would say, as the Ralbag says, it happened early, there's no need to extend Pinchas's life to that level, right? Pinchas's life doesn't have to be so long, because there's the story that he's mentioned where he's in the beginning of Shoftim, and that's the Ralbag's opinion. But some of the Rishonim say no, it happened later and Pinchas was very old. But I want to get back to the Ralbag and see maybe if we can take the Ralbag at the end, and if it was put in, it did happen in the beginning, why, if we give maybe our own reason why it was put at the end. But that's it for this Ralbag, like I said, till the end. we're going to have, if we take a look at the story of Pilegesh Bagiv'aa, the first thing I'd like to point out is the obvious, right? Pilegesh Bagiv'aa is very similar, of course, to what story? To Sodom, right? And the similarity is obvious. So anyone want to throw out some similarities to anybody? Yeah.
Tried coming in at night to rape the men, and the owner of the house tried to send out 2 women instead.
Right. So, okay, so good. You have the city gathering around the house, requesting the guest, and seems to be for some form of a sexual encounter, whatever, and in both cases, the host offers his daughter. In both cases, the daughter is not accepted. But one that happened before that, in both cases, the guest is left in the street without anyone to bring him in, except a person foreign to the town, right? A foreigner brings him in. But there are some differences. There are some differences here, which we should acknowledge. Unlike Sodom, the people of Giv'aa accept the offer. And they are satisfied with that offer and leave the guests alone. So we would imagine, at least, we're not sure, that the people that surround the house in Giv'aa have just one thing in mind: their sexual pleasure. That's it. They have no ideological concern about the guests. We bring guests, we don't bring guests. They're not interested in that. Once they get that thing, they leave. Whereas the people of Sodom absolutely are not interested or don't want anybody but that guest. It seems to be they have some problem, an ideological problem, with the guests being there. And their request for the guest outside would be something that would be much more ideological. And the people with Giv'aa, they don't seem to have any ideology about this. And a very important difference, which we'll make later, is that that in Sodom, it's clearly told to us that the entire city surrounds the house, where in Giv'aa, we're told that they are people of Bnei Belial. There's some hoodlums. Now, we'll get back to the point, they may be very important people. As the Isha Levi, when he tells the Shvatim, he says, right, Giv'aa, right? They might be some important people, but in no way should we assume that they certainly represent the entire city, right? They may, as I said, if they're important people of the city, so maybe therefore justice wasn't done against them by the members of the city because they are Ba'alei Giv'aa. So let's just keep that, but we'll come back to that. Keep that comparison in mind. Now, we have a few questions about this story, which we should keep in mind. And although I pointed out parallels to Sodom, we're going to have a few parallels elsewhere in Tanakh. I'll even mention one now. Where else? And what we have here is civil war, right? We have a civil war happening. Now, we have potential moments of civil war in the books of Yehoshua/Shoftim, and sometimes they do escalate to civil war, and sometimes not. So let's go through them. Now that we've done Yehoshua and Shoftim, what are the times where civil war almost happened and did happen, aside of this?
So Yiftach is when it did happen, and it almost happened at the end of Yehoshua.
Right, so you have Yiftach, and by the way, Gid'on, when it could have happened but didn't. And also, very good, the Reuven, Gad, Mizbeah, right, that's where it didn't happen, right? Now, let's make a comparison there for a minute. In Reuven and Gad, why didn't it happen? Why didn't it happen? Well, the leadership there, by the way, same as the leadership here. Right? Pinchas is the leader here, and he's there. The leadership there, what did they do? They sent the messenger first, and then they didn't gather for war. First, they sent him to request. Here, what happens? The order, the chronology, what happens here? They gather for war 400,000 people, and then they send a messenger, right? So that's a question. Why? We're going to have to get back to that. Seems to be that this tragedy might have been averted. The next question is, which we would take a look at, and a lot of these are Abarbanel's questions. Is this an issue that Am Yisrael should be concerned about? Yes, it's a terrible issue, but this seems to be a much more local issue to deal with. This is not, should the President of the United States concern themselves about a local rape situation? I mean, of course he should be appalled by it, but this is something that it's a local police force should deal with. It's not a national issue. Right? Right. That is, in a sense, a local issue. Now, if the local issue is not being dealt with or whatever it is, should be. But over there, I would say no. Ferguson's different because Ferguson has issues of race, murder, police brutality, excesses of police, the ability of the police to police itself and to govern itself and to investigate itself. This is a local crime. It's a bunch of hoodlums who perform an inappropriate act, right? This is a Central Park jogger case, right? This is a local crime. And yet, it all of a sudden spurs on a national response. Now, we weren't able to get national responses in Sefer Shoftim to kings coming and attacking. Right? Giv'aa couldn't get a national response this large to respond to the enemies that are coming in and destroying us, right? To Sisera, we didn't get such a national response. And here, we have all the Shvatim coming together. What's going on? How? Why? The punishment seems to be extreme. Remember, 40,000 of Yisrael, 25,000 of Binyamin, all perish. It's a massive number. And, of course, the question is why they go out, they ask Hashem, they ask the Urim B'Tumim, 22,000 the first day, 18,000 the second day. What happened? What's going on? So we have these questions. What I'd like to do today is to take the approach really here a little different than what we've done in the past. I'd like to go through the approach of two main mefarshim and see how they're analyzing this story and see what we can gain and glean from their words. I'm going to start with the Ramban. Now the Ramban, for those of us who've learned the Ramban together, the Ramban goes here on a rare excursion as he's talking about the sins of Sodom, right? And the whole episode. He decides to literally take us on a tour, and he says, oh, and by the way, I want to talk to you about Pilegesh Bagiv'aa. Now, and he tries to explain the differences between the stories, and he tries to analyze what happened in Pilegesh Bagiv'aa. So the first thing he says is that, as I said above, Pilegesh Bagiv'aa is different than Sodom. It's different than the story of Sodom. And he may have mentioned a few of the differences I said above, that the people really didn't have specific issues with the guests, rather they had a certain specific desire that was quelled when when they were given the Pilegesh, and he mentions only a few people, not the whole city. But he also says that really the people of Giv'aa. Yeah. No. So watch. So okay. So take a look. No, yes, exactly. You have to be very careful, right? You have to be careful. ואנשי העיר, אנשי סדום נסע בו לבית, מנער עד זקן, כל העם מכסה. That's not in. That's nowhere in our story at all. Over there it says אנשי העיר. And not only does it say אנשי העיר, but if you're a careful reading, goes even further. Okay. המה מטיב את דיבה, והנה אנשי העיר, אנשי בני בליעל. Right, so it says, אנשי העיר, people of the city, who were bnei Belial. These were people who were thugs, hoodlums, right? They were members of the city, but they were not the entire city, and they were bnei Belial. They were bad people in the city. So therefore, it would be a little different in terms of the entire population. And therefore, that would also fit that it's not a ideology of the city. He also says that now the Ramban goes on a limb here. He says, Anshe Giv'aa were not even Hayav Mita. Right? And he gives a few reasons. He says, look, they didn't intend to kill. They raped the woman. And they left her alive. She went home. Obviously, out of exhaustion and spending the night by right outside. So then she died. But they clearly didn't intend to kill her. So it wasn't intent to kill. So it wasn't even an act of murder. She was a Pilegesh, and therefore she wasn't the status of Eshet Ish. And here there is a very interesting mahloket between Rashi and the Ramban, a very technical mahloket, whether a Pilegesh has kiddushin but no ketubah, or no kiddushin and no ketubah. And Isha has kiddushin and ketubah. There is a question of the Girsa and the Gemara. Rashi's Girsa seems to say that the Pilegesh has no kiddushin, has kiddushin but no ketubah, which would indicate she's clearly an Eshet Ish. The Ramban's Girsa, unrelated to this story over there, says no, a Pilegesh has no kiddushin and no Giv'aa and no ketubah, which fits here in his claim that the Pilegesh, she was a Pilegesh. So mitzad Eshet Ish, bad. Mitzad Eshet Ish, not Hayav Mita. Mitzad, the intention to kill, not Hayav Mita. And she was handed over to them. They didn't even enforcibly take her. Now, obviously, it's a horrendous act of forcing themselves on her, but says the Ramban, it's not Hayav Mita. In fact, this woman was a promiscuous woman. So the Ramban says, based on this, they were not Hayav Mita at all. The Ramban continues and says, okay, what was Israel's position? Israel's position is that even though there was no mandatory mitah here, they wanted to administer the death penalty anyway. They wanted to act as what he calls a hora'at sha'ah. They wanted to act as the time would mandate, and said, no, we need to eradicate this horrific behavior, and so therefore, in order to make that statement, we have to destroy these people in that city. And guess what? We probably even will punish the whole city of Giv'aa. And they request from Binyamin, give these people over to us. Now, Binyamin, for their part, their position is, what does this mean, Hora'at Sha'ah? Why should we give them over for a punishment that they don't deserve? We'll judge it as the punishment, but that's it. So they refuse. The Ramban says also they can be insulted or angered by the fact that they weren't included as at least one of the Shivatim in the decision. Why is it that all of Am Yisrael, aside of them, are decide what to do, and then they are told by the rest of Israel what to do. This is insulting, right? A shevet is insulted from the rest. That'll remind us of Ephraim being insulted here. Binyamin is insulted, and therefore they reject and they respond, no. We are not going to acquiesce to this request. We are not going to hand over Anshe Giv'aa. Interesting also, the Levi cuts the woman up into 12 parts. According to the Ramban, right, Binyamin didn't get a part, right? It was 12, meaning including Levi, meaning excludes Binyamin. Okay. Now, the Ramban continues that really both parties were wrong. That really Israel is starting here in Milchama for no legal reason. Means they're starting a fight for out of any technical legal reason. They should not be doing it. And Binyamin, for taking the opposite approach, is also to be blamed for tolerating Zima and for tolerating such a terrible thing to happen. Also, the Ramban blames Binyamin for one other thing. He says, really, they were too vicious on their counterattack. They should have just rid Yisrael from Giv'aa, chased them away, but there was no reason why they had to go out and murder so many people. Because his claim is that all Yisrael wanted to do was get Giv'aa, not attack Binyamin. So if you were going, they should have thrown them out, but their vicious attack on the first 2 days, that made them liable. Okay. That's how the Ramban looks at each side has done wrong. And he ends with an interesting point. Why is it that Am Yisrael had to lose 40,000 people? So he says that this was a point in time where HaKadosh Baruch Hu left it to mikre, left it to circumstance. Why? He pulled out his hashgacha. Why? Because by the very nature of the way Am Yisrael dealt with this battle. Am Yisrael, the first time, what did they ask? They asked God, who should go first? So what didn't they ask? They didn't even ask for permission to do battle. They just asked who should go first. Maybe they're arguing, each shevet wants to go first or doesn't want to go first, and they ask God who should go first. What do they take for granted? That it's a battle that should be fought and that they're going to win. It's a battle should be fought maybe out of self-righteousness, so they don't ask for permission, and they're going to win because they're 400,000 people. They outnumber Binyamin, right? About 26 to 40,000 to 400, right? So that's a massive number, right? So there's no question they're going to win. So God says, okay. And he leaves it to mikre. He leaves it to circumstance. And in circumstance, Binyamin was the stronger fighter. So they lost. The second day, no, Binyamin won, right? So the second day, what happens? They come back, and we lost because we didn't ask for permission to fight. We should have asked for permission. We technically didn't get God's permission. Let's ask him for permission. Again, help, aid, assistance, I know we got this, but we didn't ask for permission. Second day, okay. You want permission? You got permission. You want me to kin that? You got permission. Again, it's a war of reshut. Go ahead. You're on your own. And again, they lose. On the third day, when they finally understand and they do, and they make tshuva and they fast and they say, okay, will we go? Will we win? Is it something totally subjugated themselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Then they emerge victorious and then, of course, destroy and obliterate Binyamin. So watch the question here. So here. First thing. First day. Right? That's just advice. And he says, okay, Yehuda yaleh b'tahila. Now they lose. In Bayom HaSheni, what happens? Vayalu b'nei Yisrael v'yikru l'Shem, vayishalu b'Hashem lemor ha'osif lageshet lamilchama. Should I still do battle? In Bnei Binyamin, alu elav. Go ahead. They didn't ask if they're going to be matzliach. They just said, do I have the right to do this war? They thought simply that they didn't have permission. Now on the third day, right, and of course, here, Vayalu kol bnei Yisrael v'kol ha'am vayavo betel vayivku vayishvu sham lifnei Hashem vayatzumu bayom ha'tov vayalu olot ushlamim lifnei Hashem bayamim hahem. And here, what else happens? Pinehas ben Elazar comes, and the Aaron comes, and they say, "Ha'osifod latzet lamilchama bnei Binyamin imehdal." Right? Should I continue? And here he says, "Vayomer Hashem alu ki mahad etenenu biyadecha." God says, I will give him to your hands. So at this point, they're guaranteed not just permission, but victory. And of course, once they get victory, then they almost imitate the Ha'ai battle, and they go and they have it. Okay, this is the Ramban. This is the way that Ramban sees this parasha. Abarbanel has some serious problems. First of all, he feels that the Ramban a little bit lets off the people of Giv'aa just a little too easy. He says, come on. They weren't Hayav Mita. They were attempting Mishkav Zachur. They went after a Pilegesh. And here, the Abarbanel goes through an interesting Talmudic analysis. So many people don't realize, or they question whether Abarbanel was a Talmudist. But here he goes through a whole page of the analysis of the Sugya, Mahloket Rashi and Ramban about Pilegesh. He says, the Pilegesh, Eshetish, has Kiddushin according to his opinion, based on Rashi. Rape, forcing themselves on this poor woman. They cause death, and guess what? The Ramban says they didn't have a problem with guests. Well, how come these people didn't have a place to sleep that night? So, the Abarbanel claims that it's too similar to the city of Sodom story for me to believe that these people did not perform a crime that warranted severe punishment based on pure law. So, on that point, he doesn't feel like that Ramban feels that it was a siag, they were making a fence, that Am Yisrael wanted to make this fence and make a statement. No. And he feels that Yisrael's fight was just in fighting the war. It was a just cause, and they are correct. In fact, his proofs are that they eventually won. This wasn't a just war, as the Ramban says. Why did God eventually help them to obliterate Binyamin? It's true they paid a price, and we're going to have to come back to the point, according to the Abarbanel, why they paid such a hefty price. But nevertheless, they did win. So we would assume that God did fight this battle for them, and therefore it is a just war. And if we assume that Am Yisrael was wrong in exerting its authority over a tribe, right? Well, then he asks, did Am Yisrael sin in the time of Yehoshua when they went after Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven? Clearly, Am Yisrael has some authority over a rogue tribe at some point. When there's a tribe that's going rogue, Am Yisrael has the right to take matters into their own hand. And in fact, he claims that Am Yisrael was acting almost as a king would have acted. And that's why in melech beyisrael. Am Yisrael, however, had and attempted the central authority here through the actions of a king and the Sanhedrin and the Urim V'Tumim and the Kohen Gadol. They had it all there. So therefore, although they don't have a king, they have almost everything minus the king. So there's nothing wrong. Now, why did they die? So he says something. I'm going to throw it out here, and we're going to come back to it in a few minutes. He brings Hazal, which the Ramban also brings at the end. He says, you know why they died? They died because they responded to this issue, but they didn't respond to the issue of Pesel Micha. There was idolatry. An entire tribe of Dan is actually serving an idol, and that was okay. There was no response, no national response. Here we have a national response. That's a problem. Says Hazal, that's a problem. L'chvodi lo darashtem. Chvod basar v'dam darashtem. Problem. I want to go back to that because I want to try and analyze what that means. But that's what he says. And then the Abad says something interesting. He says, oh, by the way, whatever they requested, they got the answer in the Urim Tumim. They just didn't ask the question correctly. So God just answered their question. Who should go up? Yehudah should go up. That doesn't mean you're going to win. Should I continue to go to war? Yeah, you're going to continue to go to war. In the third point, when they ask appropriately, they get the appropriate response. So I want to come back. What seems to be the intention of Yisrael according to Abarbanel? And there's a little bit of self-analysis. It seems that Am Yisrael is attempting to do something. They're attempting to create some form of a central infrastructure, an essential system in which they're going to take matters into the central structure of Am Yisrael. They're going to decide certain rules and laws. They will not leave it to what? To one shevet. This parasha is introduced and concluded by the famous words by Mimahem in Melech beyisrael, right? So so it's usually discussed that this really is just what? The problem what caused everything. Because in melech beyisrael, so look at this terrible situation. I think if you look at it closer, I think we analyze it a little bit deeper. What's happening here is Bayamim Ahem in melech beyisrael, and Am Yisrael is trying almost to have a melech without a melech. This is, ironically, not an example of a fractured, right, disunited people, anarchy that's allowing everything to happen. Hafuch. In the entire book of Shoftim, we never see greater unity than here. Ironically. This is the most united we ever see Am Yisrael. So, Bayamim Ahem and Melech beyisrael, it's funny that it introduces and it concludes this story. It seems, however, that Am Yisrael is grasping at a central governmental structure and attempting to have or create a united system, albeit maybe without a melech, but attempting to have that. And Binyamin may feel that this is an infringement on their own authority and on their own autonomy. This transcends, according to Abarbanel, potentially, a system of self-righteousness on the part of Am Yisrael of how this can happen. This really, and it may even transcend whose right it is to decide, right, is this a state right or a national right? This may be, very well may be, Am Yisrael trying to unite themselves and create a union, and it very well could be that Binyamin feels it's at their price of their own identity and of their own autonomy. So it's very possible here that what's at stake is not just the story in Pilegesh Bagiv'aa. What's at stake is the very union of the government, right? Or the right of one shevet to judge itself. And the question is, if that's the fight, and if that's the issue, we're left to ask, so was Bnei Yisrael wrong? Are they trying? They're trying to unite themselves and create a centralized system of government. Were they wrong? Right? And if they weren't wrong, if we are trying to unite Am Yisrael, then why, again, do they suffer such casualties? So I think, now we can the quote of Hazal that both Ramban and Abarbanel make reference to, makes sense now. It's because of Pesel Micha. It's very nice to want to centralize your system of government. It's very nice to want to unite the Shvatim. The problem is, you chose the wrong issue. You chose the issue that doesn't really mandate a central authority. You chose, right, a city police issue. You chose a local rape. But what was a national issue? How about the monotheism of an entire Shevet of Israel? How about a temple being erected in Dan with a pesel and a rogue priest, and having all of this avodah zarah being performed in Am Yisrael? How about that issue? That's the issue that you should have taken the cause for. And that would have been very similar to the story of Reuven and Gad. Because that was a national issue. So what's the difference between this situation and the situation that happened years earlier in the time of Yoshua? One was a legitimate concern of the entire nation. One was not. As horrible as this act was, it should have been left to Binyamin to handle. Now, if Binyamin refused, that was another question. So you united yourself really around the wrong issue. And you had issues to deal with. So what happens when that happens? Where does that come from? That comes from a lack of leadership. That comes from the concept of Bayamim Mahim in melech beyisrael. Doesn't mean that they didn't have unity. It doesn't mean that at this point they were a fractured people. That's not true. They were clearly united. But they just didn't understand because they lacked the leadership of what that unity means, and where is that unity a legitimate concern of authority, and where is it simply infringing on the sovereignty of a tribe that has its right to judge its people. So, in other words, there are issues and there are issues. And make no mistake, it's not that Pilegesh Giv'aa was a horrible thing. Was not a horrible thing. Of course, it's a horrible thing. But it's a thing. It's a crime that should have been punished by the police of Giv'aa, and if not, by the Shevet of Binyamin. It should not warrant a national response. Right? However, the divinity of a pesel and an entire tribe shifting away from the belief in one God, or the belief or the way we worship God, that should. I want to come back now to the Ralbag. The Ralbag said this issue did not happen here. It happened early on. Well, it could make sense because Am Yisrael is still somewhat united. And the famous who should go up, and God's answer, Yehudah should go up. That's very familiar, right? That's the very early, and that's exactly what happens here. So it's very, very, very possible that this happened very early on in the beginning of Sefer Shoftim, before we even start having localized Shoftim. Am Yisrael is still somewhat united. This is not a fragmented people. Ironically, as ironic as a civil war may make it seem, it's still 11 against 1. And so what Ralbag says makes sense in that they're still somewhat united, Why put it? But that's really not material where it happened. But what's more important is why put it here? Why put it at the end? Why put it at the end with the melech beyisrael? I think because it shows, and it's the demonstration of the importance of the king, and it leads into the book, really, of the king, right? Because Shemuel is the book of united leadership under one ruler. And I would assert that Shemuel is almost a king, right? That although Shemuel lacks one or two aspects of a king, namely his children and passing on to his children, Shemuel definitely seems to rule over a united people. So whether it's a king or not, the price of lack of leadership, even when the people are united, is a great price. It's not just that the leader can unite the people, but unite them around one cause, that they should stay focused, and that their unity should have a clear purpose and a correct cause. It shouldn't be misplaced. It shouldn't overreach on the authority of a shevet. So it seems that it was placed at the end to be a perfect segue into the book of Shemuel to teach us how important it is to have the appropriate leadership, to unite them under the right cause.